break. We're getting to test technology, so we're starting a couple of minutes late. This is quite a new thing for many of us. So morning yin is quite a new thing as well. I think this might be the first yin class in the morning that MoreYoga has hosted, certainly online. I think maybe even in all of their studios. So the more you know about yoga, the more we start to see there's a lot of disagreements about pretty much everything. The best way to do postures, the best styles, different translations of Sanskrit, importance of different texts. Another thing people talk about is whether yin should be done in the morning or at night. So at night, obviously, we have the benefits of really unwinding after a day at work and preparing ourselves to sleep. But the morning has many benefits too. We're not quite as warm, so we can start to work deeper into the connective tissues. So people say that this is a better time if we're looking to increase the range of motion, increase our flexibility. And also by really slowing down in the morning. It's a very nice, gentle way to start the day rather than how we usually do when we get up rushing around, panicking, trying to get out to work. So really slowing things down this morning, moving nice and slowly between the postures. And we're just going to start on our back in the pentacle pose. So we're going to start in a big star or X shape. So legs are wide, arms are wide. And just take these first few moments to start to settle into the space. Start to turn your attention away from any outside influences, any external noises, any distractions in your home environment. Start to tune into the sensations of the body. Start to tune into the sensations of the breath. We're going to begin with some nice gentle movements, just start to get the circulation flowing. Sometimes when we wake up, it's not necessarily ideal to come into a really deep stretch, so we're going to just take some light movement first of all. So bring the knees in towards your chest, just start to circle your ankles. So rolling the ankles clockwise, then anti-clockwise. And start to take bigger circles at the knees. So again, creating those circles clockwise and anti-clockwise. And we're going to turn the left leg down to the mat, so the left leg is straight. Bring the right knee in towards the chest. And again, just take circles, small circles, starting anti-clockwise. So the knee comes in towards the chest. It starts to move out to the right side of your mat. So small circles getting slightly bigger. Sometimes you might hear a clicking sound. That's not a massive concern. And go the opposite way. So start to create those circles again. Now moving clockwise. Straighten that right leg, bring the left knee in towards the chest, going the opposite way. So we're circling again. Knee comes in towards the chest, starts to move out to the left side of your mat. Small circles. With each rotation we get slightly bigger. And then going the opposite way. So I always like to do this every morning as part of a morning routine, just some light movement and then starting to move more into the deeper stretches. And bringing the soles of the feet down to the ground. So Just going to bring this left ankle onto the right, as if we're going to come into your eye of the needle pose. For now, just letting your left foot fall down to the ground. Maybe your arms are wide or cactus or diagonal. So let the sole of the foot fall down to the mat. Pause for a second. Come back. Bring the feet back down to the ground. Right ankle on top of left. Foot falls the opposite way. Back to the centre. Soles of the feet to the ground. Left ankle, right thigh. And the foot fall down to the mat on the right side of your mat. Take a breath. Come back to the centre. Opposite side, just a couple more each way. So right ankle, left thigh. Foot falls to the ground. Pause, back to the centre. Last one. Left ankle, right thigh. Back to the centre. Switch sides for the final time. Right foot falls to the ground. Back to the centre. So just going to take some twists now in a slightly different way. So more of a YIN kind of way. Continuous movement, light, gentle movement for low periods of time. So we're going to turn entirely onto our right hand side. So knees are stacked here. Hopefully you can see this. I've got a red line across my screen that says connected. So we're going to take this bottom ankle, take it on top of the left ankle. So that's keeping us grounded. Right arm straight out, left arm reaches beyond the right arm. So we're entirely on our right side. And then this left arm is going to reach up to the sky. So imagine you're a big book opening. That left hand reaches up to the sky and falls behind you. So maybe the shoulder comes all the way down to the ground, maybe it doesn't. Pause again for just a second and start to reach that left hand back beyond the right hand. That big book starts to open, hand reaches to the sky, starts to fall behind you. Reaching back again beyond your right hand. Maybe you're noticing you can go a little bit further now. But not the aim. The aim here is to increase circulation, starting to wake up the body. So often in the morning we think the best thing to do to start to wake up is to have a strong cup of coffee. I've done that myself for many years. And when you start to incorporate these movements, you find that this is a much better way to wake up. You're going to feel a lot more energetic after these movements. Starting to make your way onto your back again. Pause here for a moment. I'm going to prepare to go the opposite way. So rather than giving you my back, I'm going to turn entirely. So knees are stacked again. This time we're on the left hand side. So this bottom ankle, this left ankle, just hooks over the top ankle if you can, not essential. Reach the left hand forward, right hand reaches beyond the left hand. So we're on our left hand side. We're going to start to take that big book opening movement again. So back of the right hand starts to reach to the sky and then falls behind you. Pause, start to reach back beyond your left hand again. I'm just going to take 5 of these. If you're moving slightly slower, don't worry. It's really nice if we can start the day as we mean to go on. We're waking up and panicking, rushing around, immediately stressed, trying to get out of the door. That really sets the scene for the rest of the day. You can start with some slow, gentle, mindful movement. So what you've got a foundation. Pause here on your left hand side. And make your way onto your back. We're going to walk the soles of the feet together now for a reclining butterfly pose. So the soles of the feet connect, the knees fall out to the side, so we're feeling an opening in the groin. Maybe your palms face the sky, maybe one hand is on your belly, one hand is on your heart, or maybe your hands are inside of your groin. So coming into our first official yin pose. So if you're new to this practice of yin yoga, it is a very, very slow practice. Even slower than those initial movements we've been taking. So rather than flowing through different postures, in yin we hold poses for time. That time can be anything from 2 minutes going all the way up to 20 minutes. So in this class, we're going to be working in the 2 to 5 minute range. So there's no rush to come into any posture to your maximum depth. You've got plenty of time in the posture to let the body open up on its own. So here we're not concerned with our knees touching the ground. Just concerned with relaxing into this shape. And we allow the body to do the work for us. Yin is a very mindful practice. We can consider that each pose is almost an active meditation. So we're trying to tune into the changing sensations in the body, starting to become more aware of the energy flowing through your body, becoming more aware of the breath. Whether that's the obvious sensations of your belly and chest rising and falling, or maybe more subtle sensations. Maybe the feeling of the air around your nose and lips. Even this feeling of breathing in slightly cooler air, breathing out slightly warmer air. So in each posture, try and find sensations that resonate with you and start to tune in. We're going into our last few breaths here. And we're going to prepare to go the opposite way. So start to walk your feet out to the side of the mat. It's like you're coming into a bridge pose, but then keep walking on further. Feet come to around the edge of the mat. Then we start to allow the knees to fall in towards each other. So we're creating a triangular shape. So TP pose. So the knees are coming together, feet out to the side. So the exact opposite movement of what we just took. So rather than being in that external rotation of the hip, which is quite common in yoga, now we're moving into an internal rotation, much less common. That's why you might notice here some quite unusual feelings in the hips. Maybe it feels like space is being created within the hips. Maybe start to tune into those spaces. Noticing new gaps being created You start to notice the energy flowing through those gaps. Or maybe you pay more attention to how this posture is affecting your breath. Maybe you're starting to feel so relaxed that you don't even feel like you need to breathe, like the breathing is slow. As a brief guide for anyone who is new to this practice, in yoga we always want to come into the pose initially to an appropriate depth. Some people talk about finding or playing your edge, or going to the place of first resistance. So we want to feel that, we want to go to that place where we feel something but at a moderate intensity. An intensity that we think we could maintain for time. And then we're tuning into the body and responding accordingly. So if you feel the body open up, maybe you move deeper into a posture. It's the opposite. If you start to feel in pain, always okay to back off or modify this practice. Last few seconds here. And start to walk your feet apart back to that bridge-like position. I'm going to bring the knees into the chest and take a gentle rock from side to side. Keeping our left leg in, we're taking our right ankle onto the left thigh as we did earlier. This time we're coming into our eye of the needle pose. So we should have a triangular shape between the legs. We're reaching our right hand through that triangle. Left hand around the outside. Take a hold of your hamstring. So now we have lots of different options here. You could stay holding that hamstring. You could reach further and hold your shin. Some people like to flex their feet here to avoid any kind of ankle twist. Other people like to point the toes of the left foot down to the mat. You feel that increases the sensations in this outer hip, outer glute area. If those sensations are already a bit strong, you might be bringing the sole of your left foot all the way down to the mat. It's the opposite. If you feel like you're not really feeling much here, maybe you bring that left knee a little bit closer into your chest, or start to slide the right ankle down towards your left hip bone. Many different ways to do every posture. In yoga, we're not concerned with perfect alignment. We're not building towards a particular peak time posture. So this is more a practice of patience, of non-attachment, and of surrender. Surrendering to these shapes. Trusting that the body knows how to breathe, trusting that the body will open up in its own time. So as we've discussed earlier in this practice, this is a very mindful practice. So there will be periods of silence. We're doing this online, there's always that fear that it's buffering or frozen. It's probably not going to be the case. I'm trying to allow you those moments of silence, those moments where you can tune in about any other distractions. I'm going to have a moment here for the last 55 seconds in this posture. releasing whatever grip you have. Bring the feet down to the ground. Make any movements that feel good for you. Maybe you're just swaying from side to side. Maybe you bring the knees back in and start to circle the knees. Any movement that feels interesting for you now as we prepare to come into happy baby pose. So for happy baby, we're going to take a hold of our outer feet or ankles. Soles of the feet face the sky. And we start to bring the knees down into the armpits. So we want to be feeling this as an opening in the groin. If you're not, you might hold the inside of your feet. Start to take your knees a little bit wider. If you're really not feeling this posture, you could even start to straighten your legs, taking your legs as wide apart as possible. For most people, that's not going to be necessary. We're going to be here for time. So this is a posture that for many people does become quite intense. So always the option to back off. Always the option to take an alternative. Or maybe in this posture you bring the soles of the feet together. Or we can start to try and use our breath to our advantage. As I touched on earlier, in some poses we feel so relaxed that we feel like we don't even really need to breathe. Most people this isn't going to be one of those postures. For most people this will be relatively intense. So maybe you start to control your breath. Maybe you start to engage in a soft oceanic Ujjayi breath. Maybe you start to breathe directly into any areas of tension. Breathe into those areas of tension, and on the exhale, imagine you're releasing that tension, releasing any restrictions. So we come to around halfway in this posture now. Few seconds here. Release whatever grip you have. Bring the knees into the chest. Take any movements that feel good for you here. Maybe just a gentle sway from side to side, or anything else that your body's telling you it wants at this stage. We're going to prepare to take our eye of the needle pose on the opposite side. So the right leg is in, left ankle on top. Again, we have that triangular shape, so we're reaching that left hand through, right hand around the outside, taking a hold of your hamstring, so threading that needle. We might stay here, or we might take any of those options from the previous side. So maybe holding your hamstring, flexing the feet, pointing the toes down to the mat, even bringing the sole of the foot down to the mat. We're trying to make it a little bit more strenuous, bring an ankle closer to your right hip. often in yoga we don't flow through postures, but we do flow with our changing edge. So we treat this practice a similar way to a surfer would treat the waves. So we're not fighting against our edge, we're flowing with it. So letting sensation guide you throughout this practice. If you need a little bit more, if you need to go deeper, then we have that option. Not forcing anything in this practice. I'm really trying to treat this in the complete opposite way to how we tend to treat our waking hours. So rather than forcing ourselves to constantly do more, rather than rushing from task to task, rather than trying to multitask, trying to do the exact opposite. Really slowing down the body, slowing down the breath, slowing down the mind. Rather than multitasking, trying to focus on just one thing. Maybe that one thing is the energy flowing through the body. In yin we think about qi flowing through meridians. Maybe it's those differing sensations of the breath. Maybe it's the changing physical sensations. Just finding what works for you and just tuning it. Tuning in for another 50 seconds or so here. Whatever grip you have, bring the knees into the chest. Take that gentle rocking movement again. We're preparing to hinge up to a seated position. So we're going to take the soles of the feet straight up to the sky. Lift your head slightly and let the heels fall to the ground. Allow the weight to bring you up to that seated position. From here we're just going to cross our ankles, roll over the knees and come back to child's pose. So taking your knees nice and wide, walking your hands forward. So a nice gentle restorative forward fold. And starting to walk your hands to the right side of your mat. Many of you will be able to walk your hands beyond your mat. And if you can, taking the left hand onto the back of the right hand. So we're still sitting back on the heels, but now we're feeling a stretch down the left side of the torso. Maybe even stretching into that left tricep, that left outer arm. Starting to walk your hands back to the center. And walking your hands the opposite way. Hands to the left. Most of you again walking beyond your mat. And then taking the right hand on top of the left hand, feeling that stretch to the right side of the torso. Hopefully you're enjoying this gentler start to the morning. Many of us, we lose this opportunity to just have time to ourselves. Constantly bombarded with different stimulations. It's a nice time to move away from all of that. Start to be comfortable with ourselves, starting to enjoy our own company. Walking your hands back to the center. Pause here again. We're going to start to make our way into a back bend. We're going to come into Sphinx pose. So walking your elbows forward. Bringing elbows underneath your shoulders, coming into this slight back bend here. We could even reduce the back bend further by taking the elbows a little bit further forwards. So we're going to have the opportunity in a moment to come into a deeper back bend. It's obviously impossible for me to know how long you've been awake and how active you've been this morning. But generally when we wake up we're a little bit taller than we are when we go to bed at night. So these discs between the vertebrae rehydrate overnight. That's sometimes why we get that feeling of stiffness in the morning. It's really very usual, but you're not going to be able to come into your deepest back bend when you first wake up. The body needs time to start to open up. So here, not forcing ourselves into full seal pose, not making this pose any more difficult by bringing heels in towards the glutes at this stage. Just taking this nice and gently. We're going to be here for another 40 seconds or so. We'll lower down and have another opportunity to come back up again. So if you're really feeling that you'd like to go further, that will be your opportunity. Lower all the way down. Make a pillow for your head, so maybe resting your right arm on top of the left. Forehead rests on the back of the forearms. Just going to take a moment here. And we can repeat exactly what we just did. Or you might decide to come into a deeper option. So maybe you start to bring your heels in towards your glutes. If you're really feeling it, you might come all the way up into seal pose, turning your hands out like a seal slippers, pressing the floor away, starting to raise the chest. The great things about having so long in a posture, we do get a little bit of time to experiment. One of the things you might experiment with here is the distance of your legs. So for some people, taking the legs really wide is going to reduce compression in the hips and allow them to come up into a deeper back bend. For other people, bringing the legs closer together is going to have the same effect. For other people, neither of those options will make any difference at all. So just underlining that we're all here working with a different toolkit. Nobody has the same hips, nobody has the same spine. So what works for one person is not necessarily going to work for your neighbour. That's why we're really emphasising that this is an individual practice. Practice of sensation over shape. Moving into our last 30 seconds here. Slowly lower yourself back down. That pillow again, maybe this time you fold the arms the opposite way. Just rest your forehead on the back of the forearms. And moving back to child's pose. Child's pose, a nice gentle restorative forward fold, an opportunity to take our spine for the opposite range of motion. From here we're going to come into melting heart pose. So take your hips above your knees and then start to walk your hands forward until your head comes down to the mat. A little bit similar in appearance to child's pose, but now our hips are elevated above the knees. And the movement is actually the complete opposite. So rather than being in that passive forward fold, we're now in another back bend. Rather than targeting the lower back as we did in Sphinx pose, now targeting more upper and mid back. Also a nice posture for opening up the shoulders. Shoulders for many people are an area of restriction and tension. So it's common in this pose to start to notice some warning signals. So part of the practice of Yin Yoga is learning to work through discomfort. It's really important that we know the difference between discomfort and pain. So if you feel anything today is sharp or stabbing, if anything feels electrical in nature, like a tingling or a pins and needles like sensation, it could all be cues that maybe you should back off. So if you're feeling that here in the fingertips, feeling that tingling sensation, try taking your arms wider. Maybe even come down onto your forearms and elbows. If this doesn't help, you might even start to bring one arm in as a pillow, as we did a moment ago, resting forehead on the back of the forearms. You might switch throughout the pose. You might even bring both arms in as a pillow. So remember, it's a practice of non-attachment, so we're not being attached to staying in the posture, treating everything I say just as a suggestion. Let's move to 2 minutes in the pose. Maybe now your body is opening up, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you feel like you could come down onto your chest and chin. For most people that's not a comfortable option, so remember we're letting sensation guide the way. And into our last 30 seconds here now. slowly returning to child's pose. This time bring your knees a little bit closer together. Create some space by your feet. Rest your hands by your feet, palms facing the sky. Just taking this moment to give our shoulders a break. Into a pose now called toe stand. A simple posture, but simple doesn't always mean easy. So simply curling your toes under. This is all we're doing, and just sitting back on the heels. If this is a bit too much, you might come up onto your knees, take some of the pressure off of your toes. If it's really too much, you can even bring your hands down to the ground here. If you can now, try to sit back on the heels. And while we're here, we start to work into our upper body. So we're going to bring our right hand to the base of the spine. Let your left ear fall towards the left shoulder. So we should be feeling a little bit of a stretch inside of the neck. And an option here to use your hand for that little bit of extra weight. So by now we know this is not a practice of forcing, so we're certainly not pulling the head down. Merely resting our hand here. Think about rolling that shoulder back and down. So this area of the side of the neck and the upper traps. It's an area where we tend to store a lot of tension. Releasing everything, take the opposite hand to the base of the spine, roll the shoulder back. Let the opposite ear fall to opposite shoulder. Again, option to use that hand for a little bit of extra weight here. So particularly if we're spending our days now working at home with our laptop on different surfaces, maybe we find ourselves sitting, rounding forward, we're getting a bit of a kink in the necks, or maybe we're working out at home, practicing our handstands, overhead pressing, storing tension here. So this is one way to start to relieve that tension. And maybe take your mind off your toes. You use the hand again to support the head, return the head to the center. We're going to come into a final hand position now, so hands together in prayer, but behind the back, so reverse prayer. If this isn't possible, you might find it easier to turn the prayer down towards the ground. If that's not possible, maybe you hold opposite elbows, maybe even hold the outside of the hand. Just get the idea of rolling the shoulders back. So Yin Yoga talks about meridians. One of the main influences is traditional Chinese medicine, along with Taoist yoga from Hong Kong and Western anatomical knowledge. So it's said that 6 of the meridians start in the toes, and it should be a very energetic posture. We're coming into our last 10 seconds here now. And release, bring the hands down to the mat. We're going to take a nice counter pose. So turn the feet over, bring your hands near to your knees, and just start to rock back onto the top of the feet, so stretching out the ankle. Nice. We're going to come now into a reclining twist. So we're going to make our way onto our back. Take your arms wide or maybe diagonal. It looks like we're going to come into a bridge pose, and we are going to lift our hips slightly, but just slightly to the left, place them down. Bring the knees together above your waist, so you should feel a little bit off center at the moment, that's the idea. And then let the knees fall to the right hand side. And you can spend a moment here customizing your twist. When we're at home, we have the option of using cushions. We probably don't have blocks or bolsters. But you could place this cushion between your legs if that makes the pose more comfortable. If your knees are not touching the ground, maybe you place the cushion underneath the legs, so a little bit extra support. Your head could be in the center. You might decide to look towards the knees to target your left shoulder. You might look away from the knees to target your upper back. Whatever option you're choosing, just make sure that it allows you to find complete comfort and relaxation. Feeling free to close your eyes or soften the gaze. Really start to sink into your mat. Let the posture do all of the work. Again, if you start to feel any of those signs of discomfort, that tingling in the hands, listen to your body. Bring the hands down alongside your hips or rest them on top of your lips. Keeping your knees as they are, start to reach that left hand across the body to join the right. Pause on your right hand side for a moment. When you're ready, making your way onto your back. Just taking a moment in a neutral spine position, so maybe staying on the soles of your feet, maybe taking mini Shavasana. I'm going to prepare to take the twist on the opposite side. So again, coming back onto the soles of your feet if you're not already. Lift the hips just slightly, move them slightly off center to the right, place them down. Hands could be wide or diagonal or cactus. Then bring the knees into the chest. Let the knees fall to the left hand side. You're in your reclining twist on the opposite side. Again, you might be using your pillow between your legs, or even underneath the leg if your knees are not comfortably resting on the floor. It's always nice to end with a twist. Helps us to relax the spine, to remove any kinks and strains from the back. And
helps us to restore the balance of the nervous system. So many of us spend our days in this constant state of fight or flight, sympathetic dominance of the nervous system. So we can really relax, and we can completely relax our muscles. So we can sink deeply into our mats. We're sending signals to the brain that everything is okay. We can start to leave this state of fight or flight. Move into a state of rest and digest. It's parasympathetic dominance of the nervous system. So though it seems counterintuitive, often it's when we can really relax, when we can move away from forcing and striving, we can completely let go. You start to get the most benefits from this practice. So relaxing into your twist for another 60 seconds. Your knees as they are, reach your right hand across the body to join the left. Pause on your left hand side for a moment. And make your way onto your back. Just pause in a neutral spine position again, maybe soles of the feet on the mat. Maybe taking a mini Shavasana. Bring the knees into the chest. Take a gentle rock from side to side. Roll over to your right hand side. Maybe make a pillow for your head. Start to push your way up to a kneeling position. If it's very uncomfortable for you to kneel, then you could come into a comfortable seated position here. We're just going to take our right hand into our left palm and close the eyes for a moment. Start to visualize directing all of the energy in your body to one point, to the dantian. This point just below your navel. So the energy flows from all the corners of the body, meeting in that place below the belly button. Cupping that energy in your palms. Feel that energy energy as almost a ball of energy. Start to raise it slowly up towards your heart. Resting your palms against your chest, allow that energy to flow into your heart. Together in prayer, gently bowing your head, bringing the fingertips to your forehead. Namaste. Keep your practice. This is a morning yin class. We skipped corpse pose. If you're really feeling like you'd like to take a Shavasana, and you have enough time now to maybe set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes. We're trying to have an energetic practice. The risk of a Shavasana at the end of a morning yin is that you fall back to sleep. If you do feel like you've missed that Shavasana, feel free to take the time now. I hope you're feeling relaxed. I hope you've enjoyed this gentle start to the day. I hope to see you again same time next Tuesday. Have a lovely day.